Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So, whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track. Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest today is Laura Ely. Laura, it's nice to have you on the show. And so, first, would you share a little bit about yourself so my guests know a little bit more about who is Laura?
Well, I was originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Growing up, my father had a Buick dealership, and also growing up in Albuquerque, was a big race fan of the Unsers. Followed racing most of my life, and I didn't really do any track or anything until later in life. I'm a FedEx ground contractor in the Bay Area. And prior to that, I had a software company that I was a partner in that we ended up selling, and that allowed me the resources to start doing some track stuff.
Okay.
Always kind of owned sports cars most of my life. The youngest of six. I'm unmarried, don't have kids, so I can devote time to this endeavor, which I have done pretty religiously for the past 7 years or so.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
That sounds like this is your family, the race people.
yeah, pretty much. I know it's similar to a lot of other people's hobbies with, either maybe going to church or having, bridge clubs or whatever.
Mhm.
But the social side of the racing and club racing, and I'm a Porsche owner, Porsche club, that kind of stuff
Yeah.
is very appealing.
Right, exactly. So, tell me what it is that you do then. How do you stay involved? Do you drive the car? The Porsche Club, what is that all about? Tell my listeners more about that.
I had my software company. I had an employee that went to do a track day at Thunderhill Raceway, which is up here in Northern California, and he came back to work and he was showing me his video from his camera, and I'm like, wow, you can do that? I didn't even know you could do that. So at the time, the company was doing well, and I had a Porsche GT4 that I had just acquired. So then I started doing track days and joined the Porsche Club and met a bunch of people. And just once I started doing track days with various high performance driving events, Hooked on Driving and some other ones, uh, I just decided I thought that it was super fun and wanted to go club racing. So I did some club racing, and eventually now I'm in the series, the Porsche Sprint Challenge series.
Okay. So when you say club racing, the club had events that you could go to, and did you actually race against other drivers, or what did those events look like?
Well, originally the high performance driving events is not racing. That's where you follow other cars, and they have open passing as you progress into the advanced groups. And then once you have a race car, that's which I ended up buying a Porsche Club Sport GT4, then I could start racing. So that's what I did in 2016 is when I started actually racing. And
Okay.
yeah, it's with other Porsches, Porsche Club. I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with it. You just race with other Porsches in different classes and spec Boxsters and things like that.
Right. And then you said can't remember what you said you're doing now. The sprint. Oh, I
Yeah,
just lost my train of thought.
that's okay. The series that I'm currently racing in is a Porsche Sprint Challenge North
Yes.
America, The last previous couple of years, I was in the West version of that. It was Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West. The difference is the number of competitors. We just had the Sebring weekend, and there was 38 cars on track with all GT3 Cup cars, and uh, and then there's two classes. There's the Masters and the Pro Am, and Masters is an older age, which that's what I'm in.
Okay. All right. So what do you love about this? When you saw that video of your coworker and you thought, I want to try this, what keeps you going back? What keeps you involved?
Well, I think, other than what we discussed about the social aspect, the adrenaline, I always kind of had owned sports cars on the street and drove too fast on the street until I started doing track days. And then I realized how unsafe that was.
Yeah.
And so now I don't do that on the street. But I think it's just the competition. I've been a fairly competitive person, and the adrenaline. Um, Also, I think it helps keep my mind sharp. As
Hmm.
I'm getting into my later years in life, I think it just keeps me younger. I feel younger. I stay involved. I actually have a small team of my own, and I have some great people that work with me and for me. So yeah.
Well, and we have to stay involved in something, or I'm older too, Laura. And so we have to keep busy with things that keep our mind occupied, keep us interested. Otherwise, what point is there to get up and sit and watch TV? I can't do that. I have to stay busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've met so many people. I was on a in 2018, we did the Thunderhill 25 hour with an all woman team with Christina Nielsen and Aurora Strauss and Ashton Harrison, Aaron Vogel. All of those are, pro racers at some
Mhm.
level, and some are still racing. Some have changed what they're doing. And then, of course, I've met a ton of other Porsche drivers and racers. Just, yeah, it's kind of neat. Even if I am not competing, I'm always a race fan, and I'll go maybe to an IMSA event, and I, can go say hi to all these people I've met over the years.
Right. That's the one thing that I've enjoyed the most about what I do is the people I've met. And I always say if racing disappeared tomorrow, I would still have so many friends that I've
Hmm.
met along the way. And that's been the bonus for everything that we do for sure. So what is it about the Porsche that makes it, that's where your heart is. Why is that? Tell me about that.
Well, I think part of it had to do with just Porsche's brand and their reliability, and they're known, and they're really in terms of race cars, they have so many different variances from all the way from the club up to the professional levels. And the race cars I've owned are all purpose-built race cars, so you don't really have to do any modifications. You just buy them as they were made from the Porsche factory, and other than putting in cameras and a V-Box system for coaching and cool shirt, that kind of stuff, you really don't have, and the radios, of course, you don't really
Yeah.
have to make modifications. So it makes it a little simpler than because I can work on cars. I don't really do it. I mean, younger, I help my brothers work on cars sometimes, but it's not really my forte. I'm more of just the driver.
So I was going to ask you that if you worked on the car. So are there times, I'm sure there's times that you need to make adjustments or do different things. Then you have someone that helps you with that.
Yeah, I'm it's kind of a neat little story. When I started doing track days, I met some other drivers, gentlemen, and one of them, he and I became close friends, and we just thought it would be less costly if we found a little shop and hired our own guys. So we actually have a like a driver co-op where I have currently now have like 10 other cars in the
Mm.
garage, and we share the rent, and we have a person that works on the cars for us, and he's also goes to the track with me. He's my crew chief or mechanic, and so he does all the work on the car. And I actually bought trailers, so I have my own equipment to haul to the track. And it was just for me, it was more cost effective to do that than to pay, a race team that does it as a business.
Well, and how smart to share that with all those people. That was a great idea.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Most club racers are on a budget because if they could afford to do something that was at a higher level, they probably would.
Hmm.
But there are a lot of just people that love to race on, 4 or 5 times a year, and they have budgets that aren't nearly what it takes to do other levels, and it all works out.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So, Laura, how many women would you say are there a lot of women that are involved? Is it growing?
Yeah, it's growing a lot. I mean, when I first started in this series, there was myself and one other, and now I think this season there's 4 or 5 in our series. Um, but I think generally you see a lot more like in MX5 Cup and
Hmm.
some of the other Pro Series SRO and the Toyota series now, the GR Cup, and uh, I'm not big in following NASCAR and some of those series, but I know that there's a lot of women in the truck series and the ARCA
Hmm.
series and
Yeah,
Trans Am. So yeah, I think generally it's starting to grow, and I think there's been a lot of promotions and other companies now are starting to try to help young women or not necessarily all young women to achieve their goals in racing.
yeah. I see that too. I wish it was more, but I was, like you said, when you started, you were the only one, or there was only one or two, and now it's more than doubled, and it'll just keep doing that because the thing that women don't think about, it was just like you when you saw that. Oh, you can do that. I didn't know you could do that, and so
Right.
other women see what you're doing and what the other ladies in the series are doing, and they're like, oh, I thought this was just for guys. I didn't know
Yeah.
I could do it. And so that
Yeah.
encourages them.
And you see quite a few on that's, helping the teams and the engineers and things like that. And also, I think on the high performance track days, there's also a lot more women that are doing that, just the, local track days.
Yeah,
I've seen a big growth in that because I still go to the Porsche Club weekends and I see a lot
yeah,
there.
yeah. That's great. I love seeing those kinds of things grow, and it's all ages of women, and that's the other good part that I love about that. So you still work, you do this, and you have a busy life. So how do you balance everything so that you can do all the things you want and not wear yourself out?
Well, the nice thing about my company that I have is I have, it's pretty self-running. I have 2 good managers, and I don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time with that. So that gives me the time to do the racing. So
Okay.
plus, by having the little shop, I live close to it, so I can stay in contact with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really good business to be a semi-absentee owner, I guess is
Yeah,
the
that
best
is
way to describe it.
that's a very good business to be in for sure. So, do you think that motorsports is a good sport for women to be involved in? And if so, what would you say to a woman that was questioning whether it was something she wanted to do?
Well, I think it's a great sport. I mean, the car doesn't know if you are, a man or a woman. It doesn't really fall into any political issues, like you you see, these days.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the best part about it, I think. And then,
Hmm.
the other big challenge, obviously, for most people is the budget. So it's not something that you can do. It's like playing pickleball on the weekends or.
Yeah.
So you really have to have a passion for it, and you have to, be able to do the budgeting. But even at club racing level, that there's still quite a bit of women in that. I think that uh, if you don't have aspirations to be a pro racer and do that kind of stuff. But I know a lot of the younger women that are in those other series that we talked about get support. So
Yeah.
yeah, Lonnie Unser's a great example. She does really well. She's in our series in the GT4 class.
Yeah.
It's funny because I know, being growing up in Albuquerque, I knew her. I think it was her aunt, and not her direct aunt. I think it was the second aunt or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't matter really what hobby you have. And like you said, the Porsche Club is kind of like a hobby because
Hmm.
you're not making money at it. They're not paying you to do it. You're paying them. But it doesn't, there's a lot of hobbies that cost us more than we get back, but it's more about the joy we get from
Sure.
doing what it is. And so, we balance what it costs with what we get out of it ourselves, and then, decide if it's just something I want to keep doing or not keep doing. And I see that in a lot of different, categories of hobby type things for sure. So, do you feel like you've been any kind of a mentor to anyone because you've shown people how they can be involved and um, other women?
Yeah, I think so. I have an Instagram and Facebook, and when we try to do some events here in San Francisco Bay Area. Porsche San Francisco is a supporter of my driving. They give us a discount, but we'll take the car there and set it up in the showroom, and uh, I'll meet whoever, and a lot of young girls, and they have their eyes open up and, wow, you race. And
Hmm.
so I think as best I can, I try to be a mentor and promote the sport in a great way for everybody.
Yeah. And that's the best thing we can do is, like you said, you take your car there so they can actually see it. They can get into it. They can talk to you.
Hmm.
It's different than maybe if they see it on TV or, someone just tells them about it. Being able to experience it a little bit is more of an encouragement for them to get involved, I would think for sure.
Yeah, and at the Porsche Club driving events too, I've uh, helped coach some of the women drivers and help them with their track, understanding the track and doing the best lines around the track and
Yeah.
uh, braking techniques, things like that.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice that you would give to not just women, anyone that wants to get started in doing this? A lot of people say, "Well, I'd like to do that, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get started."
Yeah, I think the best way to get started is just like I did at the high performance driving events. And depending on what part of the country you are, there's Hooked on Driving was one I used. And I know there's David Murray track days and Chen track days on the East Coast. All of them have different levels. Porsche Club, they have the beginner, intermediate, advanced, and they do coaching sessions after you drive on track. And you get to discuss the proper ways to drive in a high performance environment and how to handle the car. Skid pads is another good thing for car control. So anything like that where you can go and meet other people and learn in using your own car, it's a great way to get started. And
Yeah,
plus, doing it that way, you actually see some of the things that your tires wear out quicker than they do on the street and that kind of stuff. So you'll
right,
start to get a sense of what it takes financially, to do
right.
it as well.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand is the financial part of it. And some, there's two ends of it. Some people think, oh, it's not that big a deal. And then they find out it costs a lot more than they thought. And there's others that just don't think anything about it. And they're like, no, this is what I'm going to do, even if I don't have grocery money. Because I see that at the local tracks. There's guys that'll put whatever they have to put in to their cars, even if maybe they're not doing so well on the personal level. So it's a balance, and they have to maybe kind of experience it a little bit to figure all of that out for sure.
Right.
So let's say 5 years down the road, are you still going to be doing this?
I don't know. I did start late in life, but I've been fairly successful
Hmm.
up until this season. In the full years I've raced, I've always finished either first or second in my class and points. Uh, that's one of the reasons I decided to do this series because there's way more competitors, and um, hopefully I'll do okay. But I am coming to a point where financially I need to save my money for living on.
Yeah,
Uh, the series I may do some club racing after this year. I
yeah,
mean, I'd love to keep going. Unfortunately, I don't have unlimited funds to
yeah,
keep going forever.
right.
Um, and last season was a little rough for me, so some of the fun wasn't there. Uh, because I had some incidents and crashed, and of course that costs more money. But yeah, it was a kind of a tough year.
Yeah.
Uh, but we had our first event last weekend in Sebring, uh, and that was kind of fun. I'd never been on that track before, and it's a pretty difficult track to learn and to go fast on. But I did okay. And
Yeah.
we're going to Sonoma next, which is in my backyard, so I know that track really well.
Right. And that'll be a little bit more fun for sure.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll always kind of be a part of racing. I just may not be a competitor myself.
Right. That's what I was going to say is there's so many ways you can stay involved
Sure.
without being the driver, and
Mhm.
so that's always good, and especially when you have a lot of knowledge like you have that you can share with other drivers, then you're going to be a valuable resource, I think, for any of those series. So what was your biggest challenge when you first started driving?
Uh, I don't know. Um, I think just being able to relax, I guess in racing, it took a while. I was very nervous, on the starts and all that. Now I've done it so often, it's not as, nervous anymore, just because you're used to it. But that was part of it, and just learning how to go as fast as you can and be careful on the track, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get off the track and then on your way home you feel like you're still racing and you drive too fast?
uh, you kind of do in a minute, when
Yeah.
you first leave, and then you have to tell yourself, hey, I'm, on a public road and I need to
Right.
not,
I've always
tailgate or whatever.
I've always thought of that because even as a fan, you see all that adrenaline and all that speed going on out, and then you get in your car and it's almost like you got to be like, no, you're not a driver. You're just going home. You got to be careful about what you're doing for sure. So
Right.
Laura, do you have a favorite memory?
Actually, I do, and I tell this story a lot. I think it was the first year of the Miami F1 race. I think it was 2023. We were the support event, and I finished third in both of my races, and we got to go on the F1 podium in
Nice.
Miami, and it was fun. We parked on the front straight, and if you're familiar with where they have that race, it's at the stadium, the
Yeah.
Hard Rock Stadium, and so the podium's on the opposite side of the stadium where the start finish line was. So we jump out of the cars, they put us in a little golf cart, and they run us through the bottom of the stadium over to the other side, and they had a cool down room which was for the F1. It's the same one they use for us. And if you watch F1 and you see at the end of the race when the drivers are in the cool down room, there's a bottle of water and a towel, and it was like all set up just like it was in F1. And then we got to go up on the podium and spray the champagne, and I think that was my fondest memory. And we do race at the Austin track every season, and that one has I really like going there, and that's always a good memory too.
Yeah, being up on that podium had to be a really, really cool experience, and just to be able to do the things that the F1 drivers do, it just makes you feel a little closer to that series because you're like, oh, I've done that.
Yeah, no, it was that was my best memory so far.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Is there a track that you'd like to go to and drive on, just
That I
like a
haven't.
bucket list? Yeah.
Yeah, Spa would be great. I'd love to go to Europe and do Spa or Silverstone, any of the great tracks. There's the one in Japan,
Mhm.
Fuji, and the one they race the F1. I can't think of the name right now. I'm drawing a blank, but yeah, those would be great to do.
Yeah.
In the States, I've done most of the tracks. I haven't done Barber, which I think would be fun to do.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
pretty much all the other tracks, all the
Okay.
main ones I've been to.
Do you have a favorite?
I think Coda, Sonoma, Laguna, those three are all kind of my
Mhm.
favorites. Road America's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Watkins Glen. Some of those areas where they're at are just really beautiful. But yeah, Sonoma they say is one of the most technical, and if you can drive Sonoma, you can drive any track. So we're lucky that we have two of the most famous tracks in the
Yeah.
country, right, nearby where I live.
Yeah. I've been to Road America for the motorcycle races. My husband and I were big motorcycle race fans as well. And that's a beautiful area to go to. I
Yeah.
love going there. And it's not too awfully far from Michigan where I live. So we've been there a few times for sure. So Laura, are you on social media? Is that a good way if people want to know more about you, what you're doing, maybe have questions or anything? Is that a good way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, that is. I have Instagram account for the team, which is Black Sheep Racing Team, all one word.
Mhm.
And then I have my personal one is I think it's Laura_Ely_BSR.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. And um, yeah, I was just thinking, do you feel like the social media part of it is important for you to stay involved and keep things out in the forefront of, so other women can see what you're doing? How do you feel about social
Yeah,
media?
I think it's important. I actually have someone that does it for me because I'm not,
Okay.
I just don't have a lot of time to do it. And I don't, I have someone creating the content, so it's
Hmm.
easier for them to do my posts. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's a good way to just see
Yeah.
for, young women and women in general.
I do too. I think we can make sure that it's a positive thing that we do, and we don't get drawn into all the negative stuff. And so then it makes it a positive experience, which is a good thing for sure. So, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to share, or something I just obviously missed that we should have told about you and your story?
Not that I can think of. I appreciate you having me on the show. And yeah, I really think we've covered most everything.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking time. I know, even though you say you're an absentee owner, I know there's still things that you have to do every day. So I do appreciate that you took the time to spend it with me today. And I just hope that you have a great summer. And whether you race and drive your car or not, your influence on the motorsports is still going to be there no matter what you're doing. So I appreciate that you are willing to take care of that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great being on the show, and hopefully we have other good ones to go forward with.
Thank you. If you want to just hold on, we're going to end the recording. That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel, in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind the scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.